All right, let's get into it. We are here today, on July 19th, 2025, to build what can only be described as an absolute monster of a gaming PC. This isn't just a high-end build, it's a statement. We're talking about a machine that will chew through any game you throw at it, at any resolution for years to come. This build is for those who want zero compromises, peak performance, and let's be honest, some serious bragging rights. We're on the cutting edge of technology and it feels good. We're not just assembling parts, we're crafting an experience, a portal to virtual worlds that will look and feel more real than ever before. So grab your screwdriver, maybe a snack, and let's dive in. The core of this beast is a combination that dreams are made of. We've got the AMD Ryzen 9 7950X3D, a CPU that continues to dominate the gaming landscape with its massive 3D cache. This thing is a legend for a reason, delivering insane frame rates by keeping all the necessary data right where the processor can grab it instantly. And what are we pairing it with? Oh, just the most powerful consumer graphics card on the planet, the NVIDIA RTX 5090. This GPU isn't just an upgrade, it's a generational leap. It makes 4K high refresh rate gaming look easy and even starts making 8K a viable, playable reality. Together, these two components create a symbiotic relationship of pure, unadulterated power. But a king and queen need a kingdom to rule, and that's where the rest of our parts come in. We are not bottlenecking this dynamic duo with slow memory or storage. We're going all out with a staggering 128 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. Yes, you heard that right, 128 gigabytes. It's overkill for today's games, but this build isn't just for today. It's for tomorrow and the day after. For storage, we're using the lightning-fast Samsung 990 Pro M.2 SSDs. Games will load in the blink of an eye, and the entire system will feel incredibly snappy. Every single component in this build is chosen to support the main stars and ensure there are absolutely no weak links in the chain. This guide is going to walk you through everything. We'll cover the assembly step by step, from seating the CPU on our glorious Asus ROG Crosshair X870E Extreme motherboard to taming its heat with a liquid AIO cooler. We'll even discuss the pros and cons of some of the best cases on the market to house this masterpiece, like the Lian Leo 11 Dynamic Series and the Corsair 5000D Airflow. We'll talk about power supplies, why the new RTX 3.1 standard is important, and how to make sure your cable management is clean. This is more than just a tutorial, it's your blueprint for building the ultimate gaming PC. So are you ready? Let's build something incredible. Before a single screw is turned, the most crucial part of any build is selecting the components. It's like casting the heroes for your epic movie. For our protagonist, the CPU, we have the AMD Ryzen 9 7950X3D. This processor is a gaming champion. Its secret weapon is AMD's 3D cache technology, which stacks a huge amount of L3 cache directly on top of the processor die. This means the CPU has ultra-fast access to a massive pool of data, which dramatically reduces latency and boosts frame rates in games. While it also has 16 cores and 32 threads for productivity, its true calling is delivering an unparalleled gaming experience, making it the clear choice for a no-compromise build. Our co-star is, without a doubt, the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5090. This graphics card is the reason we can dream of things like 4K gaming at 240Hz or even smooth 8K gameplay. It's built on NVIDIA's latest architecture, bringing massive improvements in raw rasterization performance, ray tracing capabilities, and AI-powered features like DLSS. The RTX 5090 is a behemoth, both in size and power, and it represents the absolute peak of graphics technology in 2025. It's the component that will be rendering our beautiful game worlds, and we want the best. This card ensures that for the foreseeable future, you'll be able to turn every single graphics setting to ultra and just smile. Supporting our stars is a stellar cast. Our motherboard is the Asus ROG Crosshair X870E Extreme EATX. This board is a work of art and an engineering marvel. It's designed for enthusiasts, with a robust power delivery system to handle the 7950X3D PCIe 5.0 support for both the GPU and our primary M.2 SSD, and more connectivity than you could ever need. For memory, we're slotting in 4 sticks of 32GB DDR5 RAM for a total of 128GB. This ensures we have an enormous amount of headroom for gaming, streaming, and having a bazillion browser tabs open at once. For storage, we're using multiple Samsung 990 Pro 4TB M.2 SSDs, delivering blistering read and write speeds that will make loading screens a distant memory. Finally, we have the components that bring it all together. To house this collection of high-performance parts, we need a case with excellent airflow and aesthetics, like the Lian Leo 11 Dynamic or the Corsair 5000D Airflow. We'll dive deeper into that choice later. To power it all, we need a reliable and powerful PSU. We're looking at a 1200-watt RTX 3.1 Gold or Platinum rated unit, which comes with the new 12V-2x6 power connector designed for power-hungry GPUs like the 5090. And to keep our CPU from melting, a 360mm or 420mm all-in-one liquid cooler is a must. Every part here is chosen for a reason, to create a balanced, stable, and ridiculously powerful system. Let's get our hands dirty. The first real step in any build is preparing the motherboard. Think of the motherboard as the central nervous system of your PC. Everything connects to it. We're using the Asus ROG Crosshair X870E Extreme, and this thing is a beast. Before we even think about putting it in the case, we want to do as much as we can on the outside. It's way easier to install the CPU, M.2 drives, and RAM when the board is sitting flat on its anti-static bag on top of the box. This gives you plenty of room to work, good lighting, and reduces the chance of dropping a screw into some hard-to-reach crevice inside the case. First things first, unbox that beautiful motherboard. Take a moment to appreciate it, but don't touch the circuitry with your bare hands if you can help it. Lay it gently on its box. Our first task is to prepare the CPU socket. On this AMD AM5 motherboard, there's a retention mechanism that we need to open. You'll see a small metal lever next to the socket. Push it down and away from the socket to release it. The lever will pop up, and you can swing it all the way open. This will also cause the socket's top bracket to slide up, getting it ready to receive the CPU. It's a simple mechanism, but treat it with care. You don't want to bend anything here. Next up, let's look at our M.2 slots. This motherboard is covered in beautiful functional heat sinks. Most of the M.2 slots are hidden beneath them. We need to install our Samsung 990 Pro SSDs now, while we have easy access. You'll need a small Phillips head screwdriver. Carefully unscrew and remove the heat sinks covering the M.2 slots you plan to use. Set the screws aside somewhere safe. A magnetic parts tray is your best friend here. With the heat sinks off, you'll see the M.2 connectors. Notice the little standoffs and screws. These are what will hold the drives in place. This board even has a nifty toolless latch system for some slots, which makes installation a breeze. Finally, let's get the RAM slots ready. There are 4 DDR5 slots on our motherboard. Most modern boards, including this one, have a latch on only one side of the RAM slot, usually the top side. You'll need to press this latch outwards to open it. It should click open, ready to accept a RAM module. Go ahead and open the latches for all 4 slots we'll be using. Doing all this prep work now, CPU socket open, M.2 slots exposed, and RAM latches open, makes the next steps of installing the components much smoother and more methodical. It's all about setting yourself up for success. This step can feel nerve-wracking, but trust me, it's easier than it looks. We're installing the brain of our operation, the AMD Ryzen 97950X3D. First, carefully take the CPU out of its plastic clamshell packaging. Hold it by the edges. Do not touch the gold pins on the bottom or the top surface where the cooler will go. AMD's AM5 CPUs use an LGA or land grid array socket, which means the fragile pins are in the motherboard socket, not on the CPU itself. This is great, but it means you need to be extra careful not to drop anything into the open socket. This is a big change from older AMD CPUs and frankly, a welcome one. Now look closely at the CPU and the socket. You'll see a small golden triangle on one corner of the CPU. You will also see a corresponding triangle marking on the motherboard's CPU socket frame. These are your alignment guides. They must match up. There are also two small notches on the sides of the CPU that correspond to keys in the socket, making it impossible to install it incorrectly unless you use excessive force. And please, do not use force. If it doesn't want to go in, it's not aligned properly. Take a breath, check your alignment, and try again. It should drop in with virtually no effort at all. With the CPU aligned, gently lower it straight down into the socket. It should settle into place perfectly flat. You can give it a tiny, gentle nudge to make sure it's seated properly, but it shouldn't wiggle. Once you're confident it's in, it's time to secure it. Swing the metal retention lever back towards the socket. As you do, the top bracket will slide back over the CPU. Now push the lever down and tuck it back under the hook. You will feel some resistance, and it might make a slightly scary crunching sound. This is normal. That's the sound of the socket clamping down with the correct pressure. Your CPU is now safely installed. The final step in this section is to remove the protective plastic cover from the socket's loading plate. Some people do this before closing the lever, but I find it safer to do it after. The retention arm's action will often pop it right off for you. If it doesn't, just peel it off now. With that done, the CPU is ready for its cooler. We won't install the cooler just yet, as that can make it bulky and harder to fit the motherboard into the case. But the most delicate part of the installation process is officially over. Give yourself a pat on the back. You've just installed the heart of your new PC. With the CPU securely in place, let's give it some memory and storage to play with. We'll start with the RAM. We have 4 sticks of 32GB DDR5 RAM. First, consult your motherboard's manual. This is important. The manual will tell you the optimal slot configuration for your RAM kit. For 4 sticks, it's simple. You'll use all 4 slots. But if you were only using 2, the manual would specify which 2 slots to use for the best performance, usually slots A2 and B2. Since we're filling them all, we can just get to it. Remember those latches we opened earlier? They're waiting for us. Take 1 stick of RAM, holding it by the edges. Notice the small notch in the bottom connector. This notch is off-center and it corresponds to a key in the RAM slot on the motherboard. This ensures you can't install the RAM backward. Align the notch on the RAM stick with the key in the first slot. Once it's aligned, place the stick into the slot and apply firm, even pressure to both ends. You'll hear a satisfying click as the latch on the top of the slot snaps into place, securing the module. It can take more force than you might expect, so don't be shy. Repeat this process for the other 3 sticks until all your RAM is installed. Next up are our super-fast Samsung 990 Pro M2 SSDs. We already removed the heatsink, so we're ready to go. Installing an M2 drive is incredibly simple. You take the drive and insert it into the M2 slot at about a 30-degree angle. The gold contacts will slide into the connector. Once it's seated, gently press the other end of the drive down towards the motherboard. It will line up with the standoff we saw earlier. Now you just need to secure it. Some motherboards have a small plastic toolless latch that you just rotate to lock the drive in place. Others use a tiny screw. If it's a screw, be very careful not to drop it. Once the M2 drives are secured, it's time to put their heat sinks back on. These aren't just for looks. High-speed NVMe drives like the 990 Pro can get quite hot under load, and this heat can cause them to slow down or throttle. The heat sinks help dissipate that heat and maintain peak performance. Each heatsink will likely have a thin thermal pad on its underside, usually covered by a plastic film. It is absolutely crucial that you remember to peel this plastic film off. If you don't, the heatsink won't be able to transfer heat effectively. Once the film is removed, carefully place the heatsink back over the M2 drive and screw it back down. Now that our motherboard is loaded up, it's time to think about its home. The case you choose is more than just a box. It affects thermals, noise levels, ease of building, and the overall look of your setup. We're looking at 2 fantastic options today, the Lian Li O11 Dynamic Series and the Corsair 5000D, or 7000D airflow series. The Lian O11 is famous for its dual-chamber design and its focus on aesthetics. It often features glass on the front and side panels, creating a fish tank look that's perfect for showing off your components, especially with a lot of RGB lighting. The dual-chamber layout hides the power supply and storage drives behind the motherboard, leading to an exceptionally clean main compartment. The O11's design is heavily optimized for water cooling and airflow from the side and bottom. You typically set up intake fans at the bottom and side mounts, pushing fresh, cool air directly into your GPU and AIO radiator. Then you exhaust the hot air out the top. This airflow path is incredibly effective and one of the reasons the case is so popular. However, the reliance on glass panels means it's not a traditional front-to-back airflow case. It's a showcase first and foremost, but one that has been brilliantly engineered to provide excellent thermal performance when configured correctly. It's the go-to for that picture-perfect RGB-filled showpiece build. On the other hand, we have the Corsair Airflow series like the 5000D and its larger sibling, the 7000D. These cases are all about one thing: performance. As the name suggests, their primary feature is a perforated mesh front panel that allows for massive amounts of air to be pulled into the case. This is a more traditional airflow setup, with intake fans at the front and exhaust at the rear and top. It might not have the same unique showcase look as the O11, but its thermal performance is second to none, especially for air-cooled components. The focus here is on function over form, although they are still very handsome, clean-looking cases. Choosing between them comes down to your priorities. If your main goal is to create a stunning visual masterpiece that you can stare at for hours, the Lian O11 is probably your winner. It offers a unique canvas for creativity. If your absolute top priority is squeezing every last drop of thermal performance out of your components with a more straightforward build process, the Corsair 5000D or 7000D Airflow is an unbeatable choice. For this build, both are excellent. The 7950 X3D needs a powerful AIO, and the RTX 5090 needs a ton of fresh air. And both case styles can deliver. It really just comes down to personal taste. The fish tank or the wind tunnel? Alright, you've chosen your case. Now it's time to get the motherboard inside. Before you do, make sure the case is prepped. This means installing the motherboard standoffs. Most cases come with them pre-installed for a standard ATX layout, but we're using a larger eATX motherboard. Check your case's manual and your motherboard to see which standoff locations you need to use. It's critical to get this right. A misplaced standoff could short-circuit your motherboard. Screw them into the correct holes, then install the rear I/O shield if your motherboard has a separate one. Our Asus board has an integrated I/O shield, which makes life much easier. Now, carefully lift your fully loaded motherboard and lower it into the case. It can be a bit awkward, so take your time. Align the mounting holes on the motherboard with the standoffs you just installed. The integrated I/O shield should fit snugly into the rectangular cutout on the back of the case. Once everything is lined up, you can start securing the motherboard with screws. Don't tighten them all the way at first. Get all the screws started loosely, and then go back and tighten them in a crisscross pattern, like you're changing a tire. This ensures even pressure across the board. Don't over-tighten them, just snug is good enough. With the motherboard in place, it's a good time to think about cable management. Before we install big, bulky components like the GPU and the AIO radiator, we have the most room to work. Look at the motherboard and identify all the key connectors. The 24-pin main power, the 8-pin CPU power, our board has 2 of them, front panel audio, USB headers, and the tiny, often frustrating front panel connectors for the power switch and LEDs. Now, look at your case and find the corresponding cable cutouts and routing channels. Plan the path for each cable from its source to its destination. A little bit of planning now saves a huge headache later. Start routing some of the main cables. You don't have to plug them in yet, but you can feed them through the appropriate cutouts from the back of the case to the front. This is especially useful for the CPU power cables, which are located at the top left of the motherboard and can be very difficult to reach after an AIO cooler is installed at the top of the case. Route the main 24-pin cable, the front panel USB and audio cables, and any fan cables you can. Use the case's built-in Velcro straps or some zip ties in the back to loosely group them. This preliminary work will make the final wiring process much cleaner and less stressful. It's time for the heavy hitters. First, let's get the power supply unit or PSU installed. We've chosen a high wattage RTX 3.1 unit, around 1200 watts, to handle the immense power draw of the RTX 5090 and 7950 X3D. Most cases have a dedicated spot for the PSU at the bottom rear, often covered by a shroud. You simply slide the PSU into its bay from the back of the case and secure it with the 4 screws provided. If you have a modular PSU, which you absolutely should for a build like this, don't plug in any cables yet. First, mount the unit itself. Make sure the fan is facing the right way, usually downwards, so it can pull in fresh air from a vent on the bottom of the case. Now, let's install the star of the show, the RTX 5090. This GPU is massive, so you'll need to prepare the case. Find the PCIe slots on the back of your case that line up with the top PCIe 5.0 by 16 slot on your motherboard. You'll likely need to remove 2 or 3 of the metal slot covers. They're usually held in by thumb screws or a single retention bracket. With the slots open, go to the motherboard and open the retention clip on the end of the PCIe slot. It's a small plastic latch, just push it down. Now carefully align the gold contacts on the GPU with the slot and the card's rear bracket with the open slots on the case. Gently but firmly press the GPU down into the PCIe slot. You'll feel and hear a click as the retention latch snaps back into place, securing the card. The card should now be firmly seated. Secure it to the case by reinstalling the thumb screws you removed earlier. Many large GPUs, like the 5090, come with a support bracket to prevent sagging over time. This is highly recommended. Install it now according to its instructions. It usually braces the end of the card against the case to keep it perfectly level. Now we can connect the power. The RTX 5090 uses the new 12V2 by 6 16-pin power connector. Plug your PSU's 12V2 by 6 cable in securely, making sure it clicks and is fully seated on both the GPU and PSU side. With the GPU in, we can finish wiring the PSU. Connect the 24-pin motherboard power, the 2 8-pin CPU power cables, and any SATA power cables you might need for case lighting or fan hubs. Since we have a modular PSU, we only need to plug in the cables we are actually using, which dramatically reduces clutter. Route the cables as neatly as you can through the back of the case, using zip ties to secure them to the anchor points. Good cable management isn't just for looks. It improves airflow in the main chamber by removing obstructions. Take your time here. A clean build is a happy build. We're on the home stretch. The last major component to install is our all-in-one, or AIO, liquid cooler. We're using a 360mm AIO to tame the Ryzen 9 7950 X3D. The first step is to mount the radiator and fans to the case. The top mount is usually the best position, as it allows you to exhaust hot air directly out of the case. Attach the 3 120mm fans to the radiator first, making sure they are oriented as exhaust, with air pushing through the radiator and out of the case. Then, secure the entire radiator assembly to the top panel of your case with the provided screws. Don't forget to route the fan and RGB cables neatly towards the back. Now for the CPU block. Most AIOs come with pre-applied thermal paste, which is perfectly fine to use. If yours doesn't, or if you prefer to use your own, apply a pea-sized amount to the center of the CPU's integrated heat spreader. Next, you need to mount the CPU block itself. Your AIO will come with mounting hardware for the AM5 socket. You'll typically need to use the motherboard's default backplate and screw the AIO standoffs into it. Once the standoffs are in place, carefully place the CPU block over the CPU, aligning the mounting brackets with the standoffs. Tighten the thumb screws in a crisscross pattern to ensure even pressure. With the AIO block mounted, you need to connect its power. There will be a tachometer cable from the pump head that plugs into the dedicated AIO_pump or CPU_fan header on your motherboard. Check the manual. This allows the motherboard to monitor the pump speed. The radiator fans will need to be connected to the CPU_fan header or a fan controller. And of course, connect any RGB cables to the appropriate headers on the motherboard or a dedicated controller. Now is the time to connect any remaining case fan cables as well. Do one last check of all your connections: motherboard power, CPU power, GPU power, everything. Tidy up the last of the cables with zip ties. It's the moment of truth. Put the side panels back on the case, plug in the main power cord, a monitor, keyboard and mouse. Press the power button. If all goes well, the fans will spin, the lights will turn on, and you'll see the ASUS ROG logo appear on your screen. This is the post, or power on self-test. Success! From here you'll need to enter the BIOS, usually by pressing the delete key to make sure everything is detected correctly: CPU, RAM and storage. You can then enable the Expo profile for your RAM to make sure it's running at its advertised speed. After that, all that's left is to install your operating system and start downloading some games. You did it. You've built one of the most powerful gaming PCs on the planet. Enjoy it.